I'm getting into the main season planting, and this is basically the time of the year that I wait for all year, because this is when I plant like a lot of the main stuff outside. And so I really want to focus on a few specific beds in this video. This year I'm really trying to get serious with growing peppers and eggplants. They require a little bit more specialized care than some other crops, right? You have to start them earlier indoors, and especially this year, now that I've figured out a lot more how I can successfully grow these plants indoors and really see them thrive for the first time, I'm really trying to give them the best shot I can to be able to really be productive, healthy plants this season. So I'm going to be talking about garden beds specifically that I've been planting with sorghum, kabocha squash, some cucumbers, and then also, of course, the eggplants and peppers, and also milk thistle. And so I'm going to be companion planting them in a few different ways, so let's go check it out. So here we are a few days later after planting. I planted this back on Wednesday, so it is now Thursday. It is now Saturday, and most of the plants overall seem to be doing pretty well. This guy seems to be doing a little rough, but I think he's coming back. But this plant is probably in the like 2% of plants that didn't do well. All the rest of them are, looking really good. So what I've got going on here is I have 2 rows of peppers on either side, and then I have a row of milk thistle in the middle. Right, the milk thistle, of course, is the darker green leaves with the lighter veins. It's not a true thistle. Of course, I started these plants indoors probably about a month ago, and then I just transplanted them out now. It's kind of late May, so I had started them back in late April. And I wanted to do this because sometimes the milk thistle requires a bit of a longer season than what we have in this zone 6 to 7 climate, especially with like average to mediocre fertility. So I tried to figure starting them indoors might give them a bit of a head start, so we'll see how this goes. Some of these pepper plants are already beginning to flower. In fact, this one and actually a few other plants already have fruit on it that is on them that are developing. So that's pretty cool. Like, they started to flower and actually develop some fruit before I was ready to plant them outdoors. I was not expecting the peppers to grow as nearly as this fast and as this large, but I had used, of course, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I used a spent mushroom substrate from my own garden from the wine cap mushrooms, and I used that as the base soil for the potting mix, and I basically just used that as a straight up potting mix, and these plants are just looking really good, amazing. So definitely I will have to maybe start these plants indoors a little later than when I did before, especially if I used this wine cap mushroom substrate again, which I definitely plan to. So these peppers are a sweet variety of pepper. These are a lunchbox pepper, and so they will turn I forget this specific variety if they turn yellow or if they turn orange, but yeah, they're like the small sweet peppers that you'll find in a grocery store, kind of similar to that. Really delicious. I really enjoy them, so hopefully I'll be able to have the opportunity to do a bunch of things with them this summer. And then, of course, in between, about 2 days ago, in between these plants, the pepper plants in this row, I planted some cucumbers as well. So I have one cucumber seed here, one cucumber seed here. Obviously it hasn't come up yet, but in a few days, maybe almost a week, they will start to emerge as well. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to mulch with grass clippings on either side of in between each of these rows and around the milk thistle. I am not going to mulch in between the pepper plants because this is where I have the cucumber seeds again, so I don't want to inhibit germination or make it too anaerobic that the seeds rot as they're trying to germinate or anything like that. But once they begin to sprout, then I'll be able to fill in this grass clipping mulch a little bit more. And this is a similar planting philosophy here. I have 2 rows of eggplant, so I have 1 row of eggplant going up this way and 1 going up that way. In between the plants, I just recently planted a row of sorghum seeds. I figured they're not going to take up too much light, especially with the plant spacing I think that I used, so that the eggplant can get the sunlight that it needs still, and maybe those 2 crops can kind of support each other as they continue to grow and become larger throughout the season. Now, of course, this eggplant didn't do too well immediately when it was planted. The next day it was pretty wilted over. You can see it's beginning to perk back up now and come back. What I did was a few days ago, when I noticed it was all droopy and everything, I actually pinched off some of the wilted leaves so that it wouldn't be as much of an energy drain on the plant, and the plant could focus on getting its new growth in order. I left a couple of these wilted leaves, although I don't know if they're really going to come back at this point, but the plant itself is coming back, so that's good. You'll also notice some of these plants have some nutrient deficiencies showing up in their older leaves, so this is probably most likely I would guess a nitrogen deficiency. The plant's probably used up a lot of the nitrogen in the potting mix over time, and it's been like a couple of months I didn't amend anything in there, so they, the new roots that were continuing to form, as the plant continued to become larger than what the pot was designed to be able to handle, probably got a little bit root bound, and there was probably not enough of nitrogen to go around to support the entire plant. And so the plant is pulling nitrogen from its older leaves to support the growth of its newer leaves. That's why the newer leaves are dark green and the older leaves are fading away in like a yellowish color. Now over here, what I have going on is I have 1 row of eggplant. It's a bit of a narrower garden bed, and also I think I planted kabocha squash in between some of these eggplants, and then on either side of the eggplants I did a row of sorghum each. You'll notice we do have some sumac incrementally here for some shade. Some of the canopy I may selectively prune as well, so that we have a little bit of shade and not a lot of shade. And so I applied these grass clippings just now, and it's actually right before it's supposed to rain. And so these grass clippings are actually a very good source of nitrogen, particularly when they're fresh and green and they have that strong grassy smell, right? And so that nitrogen is very water soluble, and so the water will actually take that nitrogen from the grass clippings, and it will actually infiltrate it down into the soil profile, and it can be picked up by plant roots. So it's about strategic timing of applying this grass clipping mulch, especially right before a rain, to take as much advantage as you can of the available nitrogen. Right, so again, I just really want to reiterate, as I've mentioned in other videos as well, how amazed I am at how well this mushroom substrate soil has done, right? The soil that I went out in February and March to collect after a full season of where these wine cap mushrooms have taken these wood chips and broken them down into this carbon-rich organic matter, and also the chitin and some of the mushroom fragments in there, and the mycelium, also contain a nitrogen component, which can kind of be a already existing fertilizer, natural fertilizer in the soil that is relatively slow release, and it can be picked up by the plant. So as certain fungal cells begin to break down, as that mycelium has less of a food source to go off of in those pots, and then as those cells break down, that's where the plant can really, I think, pick up that nitrogen. So it seems to me that some later term nutrient deficiencies, as the plants were beginning to get a little bit more root bound, especially in the case of the peppers and the eggplants, eventually occurred near the end, right? I didn't fertilize with anything supplemental, I didn't up pot anything, right? So I do kind of feel that they could have used that, because I think they used up a lot of the available nutrients, specifically the nitrogen, in a lot of those, in the soil mix in a lot of those pots, because they outgrew their pots probably like a month ago, maybe more. So on that note, thank you so much for checking out this video. I always appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Take care.